Okay, but seriously though, why does no one in Starfleet wear scants anymore? Hello interwebs, we are officially halfway through the second season of Star Trek Lower Decks because it's time to talk about episode 5, An Embarrassment of Dopplers. There we go. I got it. I know my stuff. I'm a Trekkie. I got this. But yes, we're going to talk about episode 5 of season 2, so spoiler-free section first if you haven't seen the episode, and then we're going to get right into spoilers as per normal. So spoiler-free, what did I think? I really enjoyed this episode. This episode did a lot of things that I really enjoyed, but also was kind of heartwarming and really fun on top of that as well. First off, a lot of the storylines throughout this episode are kind of dealing with a lot of the emotional fallout, even going back to the season finale of last season. Sort of like dealing with some of the stuff that we were dealing with Rutherford having lost his memory, and Boimler still having gone off to the Titan and then come back and kind of done that without talking to Mariner first and letting her know that that was what he was going to do. And so we're really kind of finally getting to a point where we're kind of dealing with the emotional fallout of that. And I think that the conflicts and emotions throughout all of this really came to the fore in a really great way. I think particularly the stuff with Rutherford really resonated, and I really am loving, I don't really love memory wipe storylines. I always kind of have issues with that, but I really like how they're handling with Rutherford, especially in this episode. It's come up a few times already, how his memory wipe has affected him, but this one, it really kind of brings it to the fore and really kind of uses it to deepen his relationship with Tendi and really just bring forth some information with that, and I really enjoyed that. Also, the stuff with Mariner and Boimler kind of also was dealing with that same fallout that I was talking with before, and I don't want to get too much into it because that'll sort of filled without the spoiler section. What I will say is this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It also had a lot of like cool building out of Starfleet as an organization and like how they run and sort of the social life of Starfleet in a really fun way. But also the episode just really ended on a very heartwarming moment between Mariner and Boimler. I thought it was very sweet. I don't think I've ever just kind of felt more like, oh, this was a very sweet episode more than I have with this one. I was just beaming from end to end with true joy and happiness at the end of this. So great episode on that front. And then the other part of this episode was the sort of like main big plot of the episode, and I thought that was really creative too. We have an alien diplomat who, whenever he gets upset, he splits off and duplicates, which given that you're a diplomat, I don't even know how you deal with that if you're so emotionally vulnerable like that, but it was obviously sort of creating an interesting situation there. Fun sci-fi stuff that also was dealing with Freeman and her command style and sort of building out her as a character as we've seen her arc through the season. The other two storylines were also dealing with emotional fallout going for those characters as well. So overall, a really fun episode, left me feeling very warm in the heart, but also felt like it was moving forward the emotional arcs and character arcs for all of our characters so far. But to talk more about it, we're going to have to get into spoilers. So, spoiler section, if you haven't watched the episode, go watch it, enjoy it, and come back for spoilers. We don't have a cold open this episode, so we start right off with the main sort of big plot of the episode, where we learn that the Cerritos is ferrying a Doppler, an alien species that duplicates whenever they get upset, an ambassador of that species, to a conference on a starbase. And so the entire command crew has kind of been walking on eggshells around this guy. And the actor sounds familiar. I think he's been in a few different things before. I know I recognize him. Very famous actor whose name is escaping me, but really liked his work here. And I liked the sort of Cerritos crew just being very frustrated that they've had to just walk on eggshells this entire time. But when they get to the starbase, Captain Freeman says she's very excited to go to this like big captain's party that only the most important members of Starfleet, like the big command crews, get to attend. And she gets to attend because she's so important because of the stuff that happened in the season 1 finale with the Pack-Leds. So I like seeing that continuity go through there, but also kind of feeds into Captain Freeman's ego that we've seen come up a few times throughout the season and being like, yeah, I'm so important, of course I get to go. But of course, she misspeaks when she's talking to the other admiral on the station in front of the diplomat, and he starts splitting off. And so that sort of creates the main danger of the episode for the ship, and also for the Tendi Rutherford storyline as well, because the guy's splitting off so many times that he's sort of like filling up the station and possibly destroying the ship. A lot of this kind of reminded me very much of I think it was The Trouble with Edward. There was a short trek where it was about the guy who like was a terrible Starfleet officer and caused the Tribbles to like duplicate and create that problem and sort of overrunning that ship. So it's kind of feeling like a little bit of a reused idea, but I'm okay with it because it's slightly different. This guy is like doing it because of emotional vulnerability, and it was kind of funny to sort of see that difference. But I did feel like it was kind of a little bit of copying that situation, a little bit of duplicating that, if you will, which normally is a problem. Star Trek always steals from each other, but I think it's just sort of noticeable because it's only been like a year or two since that episode came out. So just a little bit of an interesting note there. But this storyline was a lot of fun. I liked seeing the ships being overrun by these guys sort of being like, oh no, I'm embarrassed. Like the constant embarrassment and constant reasons. Like, she's giving us the silent treatment. All that was great. And I like that Captain Freeman just being angry at this guy and just being like, pull yourself together, man, is actually what pulls him together. And so everyone has to go around and sort of yelling at them. And I love how she says, I know we're Starfleet, but just give him a piece of your mind. And they all pull back together. Loved that whole storyline. And even though that was sort of the top level storyline. But the real emotional core of this episode comes down to, we have Rutherford and Tendi. Rutherford and Tendi's storyline is they're building a little model version of the Cerritos, just kind of reminding me of all the different Star Trek models you can buy today. I mean, for those of you know, I did a live stream a little while ago where I did a model of an NX-01 that I have in the other room. So this is like kind of like, I mean, other people do it, but it's definitely a Trekkie thing that people love to build little ship models. So I like that they have that in universe. A lot of the jokes around Lower Decks, there's like this recurring joke of like the toys that we have of Star Trek stuff are actually in universe toys within Star Trek itself. So I kind of like that recurring joke here. But I like it being sort of a bonding moment between Tendi and Rutherford. But as the ship gets overrun, Rutherford starts getting upset because he sees little notes from his past self, the past self he had before his memory erasure that he had written on the ship. And as he's building it, he's getting the ship wrong. And so he starts to think that he's dumber than his past self, that he's sort of trying to live up to this ghost of himself that he could never really live up to. And so as the ship's getting overrun, he's sort of having this like crisis of conscience, or crisis of self, I should say. And Tendi brings forward this wonderful moment where she says like, no. The reason those notes were there, we're intentionally causing things to screw up. We were doing that so we could just enjoy our time together. And it's just a sweet reminder that these two really had bonded and grown together, and that Tendi doesn't mind that he's lost his memory. That was my favorite moment in the season finale of last year, where Tendi's like, it's just another chance for us to get to know each other. And she reminds him, like, no, you're not better or worse. You're you, and you're just, this is just what it was, and we're still doing those things. And I thought that was very sweet and really nice. And then the end of the episode, when they sort of meet in the bar at the end of the episode, because they sort of work together and Rutherford's able to figure out a way to get out of the situation by breaching the warp core, and there's like the tiny little model warp core voice. That was very sweet. And then at the end of the episode, Tendi's like, no, we can start a new tradition. We're going to build the Deep Space Nine model. And obviously they reference Ezri and Jadzia. That's great. And I thought that again, that warmed my heart. It really just brought an absolute smile to my face to see that storyline. It actually felt like there was weight to Rutherford's memory loss, which I'm really, really liking. Again, that's saying something for someone who really does not like memory loss storylines all that much, so I'm liking that there's actual stakes to it being brought up here. And also, Tendi and Rutherford actually getting moments to continue to grow their friendship and possibly romance. I really want that to happen. I'm all here for the Rutherford-Tendi romance. But speaking of romances, one romance that I don't want is between Boimler and Mariner, which gets referenced in this episode. Someone calls Mariner and Boimler boyfriend and girlfriend, and they're like, ew, no, gross. Yeah, and I like that. I don't want them to be boyfriend and girlfriend. I like the show constantly reinforcing it. But hopefully they don't reinforce it too much, because then I might get into like, they're saying that too much, which makes me think they are going to be put together. But anyways, that's an aside. The storyline with Mariner and Boimler is Boimler wants to go to the big party that Captain Freeman also wants to go to, and Mariner learns, says, hey, you can, pretend to be your duplicate that we had from a few episodes ago and get into the party, because that Boimler is on the Titan, and so he's able to get into that party where you're not. Which has me questioning, and this is the same thing with Freeman, it's like, it's weird that Starfleet has this like exclusive club that's like not only just based on rank, but also based on like how cool your ship is, which kind of feels weird to me for Starfleet to a little bit of a degree, to be kind of frank with you. It feels like just it should be like a party only for captains or number ones and above. So it's like weird that like there's classism between type of ships within Starfleet. I mean, it makes sense normally, but it feels weird for Starfleet. But I'm willing to let it go, because it kind of plays into the whole Lower Decks feel of not only the characters, but also the Cerritos itself being sort of a Lower Decksian ship and sort of being looked down upon by Starfleet as a whole. So it fits the theme of the show overall, but sort of a weird thing to notice about Starfleet there. But, Starfleet's not a perfect organization. We've seen that many times, so I'm willing to buy it. It's not like it breaks canon or ruins Star Trek for me or in any way, shape, or form. Just an interesting note, something to build out of the lore. So Boimler and Mariner sort of get into adventure. They go on the station, and they, to get into this, I was a bit confused about the dynamics of this, but Mariner like runs into this guy to help them get into the party, and so they have to take these like bubble baths for him, sneak them across. I also like the joke that the bubble baths might also be lores, like little lore bubble baths. I was also thinking like, why couldn't they be B4s? You're gonna forget the B4? Come on, we have Data, Lore, and B4. Come on, you're forgetting B4? I'm very disappointed in you. I'm very disappointed in you, Lower Decks. But seriously, it was a really really fun. And so they get pulled over by the cops, the station security, I should say. Turns out that they were accidentally smuggling Klingon weapons, so they go on this really great chase sequence. This looked gorgeous. The animation team clearly went all out for this this whole sequence, the chase sequence. A lot of fun little references that I'm sure you can catch over and over again. Like, I loved when they went through the Vulcans bit. I loved when they were going to the barbershop. We saw the different shells. We saw the casinos, and we saw the Dabo wheel. Tons of little references. The fish people as well from Star Trek The Next Generation. All of that stuff. The animation team was clearly having a ball. I really enjoyed that. I didn't necessarily need, like, Boimler just constantly yelling. Like, the joke was kind of a little bit too much. I don't mind it once or twice, but Boimler was like, casino, fish people. Like, he was just stating the things. So I thought that there could have been more jokes in terms of the dialogue of the sequence, but the visual gags were absolutely wonderful. And I love the Vulcans being, like, fascinating when they just went through just having no other, like, a very understated reaction. That was wonderful. Also, the other good visual gag that I like was the Aurelians when they were going to the the aviary section, which I also love with, like, the different cars breaking through the hologram section of that looked really cool. But when they were going through that, they knocked the, like, bird nest stuff down, and the aliens in there, the bird people, I believe they're called Aurelians. I might be mispronouncing that, but they're the alien bird people that we saw in Star Trek the Animated Series. I think they first appeared in the episode Yesteryear, but they might have appeared in different episodes as well. But they're an animated series reference, which I loved. I love seeing the animated series aliens pop up here and there, because that's really the roots of Lower Decks, just as much as The Next Generation is. So it's nice to see those people here. I also like the little Boothby reference. They have the, like, gardener who's like, this is how I die, and then he doesn't, and he's just like, oh, still alive. That was also wonderful. So that was a fun little side trip, but the real heart of the episode comes when they finally are able to get into the party, and Mariner is upset at Boimler because Boimler sort of, like, references the fact that, you know, he got abandoned by her and was sort of upset by that, like Boimler bringing up and sort of joking around about it, when Mariner also still feels like she had been abandoned by Boimler when he left to go on the Titan. And I like that because that makes sense. It was at the end of episode 2 when Boimler came back on the Cerritos of this season, I was a little bit like, oh, that's kind of quick. I mean, I liked it. I liked the, like, oh, Starfleet people come together and they forgive each other very easily. But it also makes sense that Mariner would have a little bit of resentment towards him. So I like it coming up here, and Boimler's like, all right, screw you, I'll go into the party, because Mariner's not able to go into the party, and Boimler starts to further his career. A lot of cool stuff in this party. There's a lot of different references. The two that I really loved is I loved seeing Captain Shelby. We finally see that Captain Shelby from the episode Best of Both Worlds finally got her ship, which, by the way, is a Star Trek novel nerd. I'm a little bit disappointed. It's like, oh, no Captain Calhoun? Give me a Captain Calhoun. For those of you who don't know, Captain Calhoun was a character in Star Trek The New Frontier novels, and Shelby was his first officer in those novel series. So he's a great character. You should read those novel series. But I was sad we didn't see Captain Calhoun, but it was nice to see Shelby finally got the captaincy that she was after. As well as we also saw a Star Trek Discovery alien, the, like, 4 alien, like, horn people that we saw over on Star Trek Discovery a few times. And so there's a few other references in there, but those ones, for me, I was just like, oh, that's really cool to see that. But Boimler starts to realize he misses Mariner, and he goes and meets her at a bar. This bar is also filled with cool Easter eggs. We saw the Guardian of Forever, there's the Doomsday Machine, a few other TOS references in there. But he goes and meets her at the bar, and they sort of had, again, this is a nice, like, very heartwarming moment for me. I thought that this scene between the two of them was incredibly sweet. It just felt like it really showed where they're at in their relationship. They like to pal around with each other. They really see each other's friends. They really can come together in that moment. And they joke about who's going to be captain, who's going to be number one. I thought that was also very sweet. And again, sort of sets up their arcs for the show. I sort of see them being at some point in the series, maybe becoming captain and number one, but who's going to be which, I think will be kind of interesting to see. And I really like that dynamic and just sweet camaraderie between the two of them. And I loved the moment where, like, oh, we didn't get into the party. And the bartender was awesome, by the way, pointing down and saying, like, no, Kirk and Spock got to be here, and they etched their names into the table. And then Mariner and Boimler did the same thing, and they were just nerding out about that. It was very sweet, and just showed that these two characters have, honestly, to me, have fit right into this lore. And it's just really nice to see these characters on that journey to become the Kirk and Spock of their own stories, to really become captain and first officer. It was very nice, very evocative, and really just showed where they're at here. The moment that I loved the most was when Mariner went out to Captain Freeman, who wasn't invited in the party, and I liked that she did the Troubles with Tribble ending with, like, sending the Doppler into the party to ruin the party for everyone. Very much like, and I beamed them over to the Klingon ship where there would be no Tribble at all, sort of thing being evoked there. I love that, Freeman's hanging outside the bar, and I like her standing up for her crew, and Mariner invites her in, and they just have a nice moment in the bar with everyone there and just sort of enjoying themselves, and Rutherford and Tendi is there as well. And the very sweet little moment where, like, Mariner says, like, oh, you'll be my number one, and Boimler says, yeah, oh, wait, no, you can't do that, and Captain Freeman coming in is like, oh, yeah, I saw it happen. Just, again, a very sweet, heartwarming moment, and ultimately, at the end of this day, that's what I have to say about this episode. This episode was a lot of fun, had good sci-fi stuff in it, really felt like it was really moving forward the arcs for these characters, sort of really feeling like the weight of the previous previous 2 episodes and really feeling fallout from that, and yet also warming my heart at the same time. And that's really what I love this show for. It's constantly funny. It's very much dealing with Star Trekian tropes, but at the end of the day, it really makes me feel for these characters and really makes me feel that like earnest optimism and kindness and hope that Star Trek has always been about. And you really feel that quaintness in these moments. And so for that, I think that this episode was a top-notch one for me. I absolutely loved it. It was just, it's everything that I loved about Trek, at least on an emotional level. Good characters, good character moments, cool sci-fi ideas, all wrapped up in a very earnestly optimistic and homely story. I think those aren't the right words, but you kind of get what I'm going for. The sort of quaintness, the sweetness of it. So yeah, this is a great episode. I loved this one. What did you think of it, though? I'd love to hear all your thoughts down in the comments below. Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What other references did you see that I missed or I didn't talk about that you want to yell at me about? I'd love to hear all of that down below. Don't forget to have a Patreon page that you can help support me at. Don't forget to subscribe for more Lower Decks reviews and also video essays and things that I do on this channel, so discussing social issues and LGBTQ topics. But beyond all of that, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you, as always, live long and prosper.